Yeah, so my passion was for the Anunnaki and the Sumerians throughout the years. I have every Zechariah Sitchin book sitting right here collecting dust. And I was all into that for so long. I started looking to see if I could find if there was anything out there that would lend credence to the idea of them being human instead of from the stars. So what I found, it's funny because it was there. I put the cart before the horse, and they say to never do that, but seek and you shall find, because I talked to a man named Freddie Silva about it and his research, getting, on the boots on the ground information from the locals, from the stories that are passed down. I take a lot of value in oral stories that have been passed down through generations. And so does he. And he discovered that the Anunnaki was not the original name, but he was looking in Ireland first. He was looking over in the West, and what he found was the Tuatha De Danann, the original fairies or pixies of Ireland in their mythology and folklore. And it turns out that they're one and the same. And the Tuatha De Danann had an older name from when they were much further away in the Middle East, called Tuatha De Anu. So it's quite literally talking about the same deity on the surface of things, if that's what we're going to call it. So we're connecting vast portions of the earth that typically don't get connected when it comes to ancient aliens, or even really most of alternative history doesn't really talk about this. Someone with a massive Netflix special that can talk about hidden history and ancient ruins and stuff doesn't seem to come anywhere near Europe or Scandinavia or any of these areas. It seems to be not important, but I'm finding a lot of importance in, the roots of our European areas of the world. So we can go over like some of the words I've found, but
so you think that what people are calling the Anunnaki, I mean, obviously it's not their name. I don't believe that Zechariah Sitchin ever actually translated anything. He used other people's translations.
Yep.
And that's something that people don't really talk about or know. They want to make it seem like he's the one that translated them, but he didn't. He just compiled everyone else's translations and then created his own book.
Yep.
So books. So what? So you think that what we call the Anunnaki are in a slightly more advanced human race that presented themselves as gods, and then we have misinterpreted them to be extraterrestrial?
Slightly. But the thing is, it's not that it's kind of like our meanings to words have been altered over time, whether that's a game of telephone or there's nefarious hands at work. I mean, at some point in time, there's absolutely nefarious hands at work, because at some point in time, it goes back to the church, basically usurping all of these old kingships and old dynasties, and basically relegating them to fiction forever. As Lawrence Gardner put it, not beguiling little folk like is written in folklore, but former kings and queens of the old world, basically. Yeah. And so the thing is there's a strong case for allegory in the Bible and other religious texts. And I totally get that. And I don't know what to make of that, because there's so much history involved in these old texts too. But you just have to know what you're looking for. Like, basically, they've taken everything that was history that they found, disparaging to themselves, and turned it into fantasy. And it's become mythology and religion. The word fairy itself is, it's a Greek word that originally is fair. And this term is related to a great house or a nobility. It has nothing to do with little creatures flying around whatsoever. And also, it's the same root as pharaoh, which also basically means great house or kingship. In the Gaelic world, certain royal families were said to carry the fairy blood, which in other words meant like the fate of mankind. This is telling the story of a supposed group of human beings that at least stylized themselves as sovereign shepherds of the rest of humanity. Whether they were or they weren't is up for grabs, but that's at least some of what has been written. And a lot of this information is coming from actual chronologies in privately held house libraries and royal families and things like that, their lineages. A lot of this has been found through trying to put these family trees together in an official way and seeing all these links and seeing where they go back to. You've heard of, the Da Vinci Code and things like that, but the Da Vinci Code is more of a distraction than anything else, because the whole movie, the whole book shows us that the bloodline that they're talking about is only important because it's Jesus. But that is actually flipped in most of what I'm finding. It's that there's this Merovingian king line that Jesus may have been a part of if he was a real person.
I think the whole Jesus story is Mary coming up with an excuse of why she cheated on Joseph, and then they created an entire religion around it.
Well, sure. I mean, so here's the thing. I mean,
it was God. It was God that did it.
Take it a step further. All right. It's more of it seems like an arranged pregnancy, almost like she was chosen to be the secret bearer of this old king line that was trying to stay afloat underground. Basically, that's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah, but, it's really interesting when you look at it from that perspective. She did something that she wasn't supposed to do, so then the whole thing got so out of hand, just like the UFO community has gotten completely out of hand, and it turned into an entire religion that's killed thousands and thousands of people.
But the thing is so this is how the words have changed, because even if she did use that excuse back then, the gods did it, or it was God who did it. This word didn't mean what it means today. Back then, if we're talking about ancient history that's supposedly not written about, we were all just Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal, and everything was shitty, and we were nothing. We were just barely hanging on. If we don't follow that, then I don't know, man. It tells a much different story about this word God. It goes back to the Germanic phrase, very, very ancient, Proto-Germanic, meaning good. Simply the good people or the good one. And it's rooted in gut. It was said like gut. And that's probably where we get the word gut, because that's where our intention is. That's where our will is. Go with your gut. It's like the brain in the belly. And that's what these old heathen pagan societies felt like, that gods were these enlightened people. Same with the idea that Christ means anointed. It's not a last name. It's not a surname or anything. It means anointed, but it doesn't mean he's king. It means king. It means crown, as in crown chakra, being of that presence in reality where you are able, mature enough and enlightened enough to rule. So that's kind of where this perspective is coming from with that term God. So even hypothetically, she uses that term, she's still going to get in trouble with Joseph, but Joseph ain't going to do shit because of who they were.
Well, when you think about it too, I don't even think vowels were invented at that time. So it would be impossible for the name to be God. Same with Jesus, right? Because A-I-O-U, G-O-D, there's an O in God.
Yeah, that's if we're following the standard academic version of the evolution of languages. And again, our history's cut off at a certain point. We're told that it's nothing before it. So unfortunately, that's not a complete story either, I was really into Tolkien and the Lord of the Rings, and I always wondered as a kid why elves were so tall. I thought they were just like pixies and fairies. Well, it's because this word El from Mesopotamia means shining, and it means the same thing in Ireland. It means the same thing in England. This derivatives of it in Babylonia, Elu. Elohim is the plural of El. This is all relating to shining. And again, this shining notion is related right back to enlightenment, not some shiny being from the stars or anything like that. To a certain point, these words meant what I'm saying they meant, but after a while, they've been lost. During the Carolingian dynasty in France, which basically was the end of the Merovingian dynasty, that's where a lot of our folklore comes from. That's where those original Arthurian legends start to pop up and everything. All these folklore and mythologies that paint things in a mystical way which eventually now in the contemporary times has led to a more technological alien sort of lingo. But regardless, at one point it was this mystical idea. And yeah, I mean, it definitely could have been like that, but that's also where the word alien comes from originally. Like that word originally meant like stranger, from another culture, someone that doesn't share the same values.
Yeah, I mean that makes logical and critical sense. It's interesting that you're talking about fairies right now because I just before we started the show, I was watching Emily Louise's channel. She just released a new video today,
Hmm.
um, and she's talking about I think it's on Emily Weird Reads, I believe is the name of her YouTube channel. But she has a segment in there about fairies and like
Hmm.
modern day fairies and how they became popular, and they actually became popular off of a hoax. These two little girls were hoaxing fairy photos, and the Theosophical Society got involved into it, and they bought into the whole thing, and then it
Wow.
became this huge big ordeal. And it wasn't until they were late in their lives that they confessed that they used like cardboard cutouts of fairies and staged all the photos.
And there's been so many since that just still keeps going, regardless of the reason why we caught on to it to begin with. People want to forget, and they just want to be mystified because they've grown up their whole lives being told that the world is mundane. So now there's an opportunity where they kind of see that maybe the world isn't as I was told. But that at that point, the floodgates are open, and that's when people become really vulnerable.